Hey guys, here today showing you how to replace a lower control arm, or well, I'm not going to show you how to replace both. I'll show you how to replace one on a 2003 Volvo S60. The control arms look like these here, all aluminum. They're pretty expensive. Local parts store had them for about $170 a piece. You might be able to get them cheaper online. I suggest looking at FCP Euro. These were provided to me though, so yeah, they're not too difficult to take off. You do have to take off the brakes, the brake caliper. You have to take off the caliper bracket. You need to remove the axle. All the stuff pretty much stays with the car. You just mostly have to remove the hub or the knuckle assembly so that you can, get the new arm in there. These have failed, as they all do. The lower control arm bushings fail. These guys right here, they just break after a while, and if you notice upon acceleration you get like a vibration, or there's just some general like overall looseness feel of the front end. It's probably these. This car has 200,000+ miles on it, so they're about done now. So this video will apply to the Volvo S60, obviously, as I'm working on it, from 99 to 2006. This video will apply to the 99 through 2006 S80, 2001 through 2009 S60, 2001 through 2007 Volvo V70, the wagon, 2003 through 2007 XC70, and 2003 through 2014 XC90. So this video should apply. I mean, it might not be exactly word or step for step, but it will apply to all of those models, pretty much all of the Volvo models from 99 through 2014. Again, this is an S60, so let's just get right into it. The car is jacked up, put it on jack stands. You'll need to remove the wheels. Obviously, they are 19mm size sockets, so I'm going to go ahead and remove the wheel now, and I'll get right back with you. Okay, so you can see that I got the wheel off. Now the next thing you want to do is, if you can, you want to go ahead and turn the wheel. Get inside, put the key in there, and turn the wheel to all the way to the left. That way you can have good access at the back of the brake caliper here. There are two 15mm bolts that we need to remove in order to remove the whole caliper and the bracket together. You don't want to separate them. I mean, if you wanted to separate the caliper and then do the caliper bracket, there are bolts that are hiding behind these little plastic caps, one here and one on the top, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to remove everything together as a whole. You do want to note that this right here is a steering stop. You can't see the rest of it, it's going down. So when you do remove this bolt, careful, because this might want to fall down. So do just make sure you hold it. Before you take it off, what I suggest doing is to get a long flathead screwdriver. Let me see if I can grab one. And stick it right here in between, stick it right into the rotor, into the vented things, and kind of just pry on it a little bit, pry on it outward. You can see the whole caliper moving because I'm pushing it outward. That way that'll allow the rotor to be able to spin, and you'll be able to pull the caliper off a lot easier. So I'm going to go ahead, turn the key to on, don't start the engine, and just rotate the wheel out to the left. There, now you can see I have really good access to the back. The two bolts you need to remove is this one right here and the other one that's on the top. Again, I'm sorry if it's windy and it's hard to hear, but go on ahead and loosen and remove those, and then the caliper should also be removed all together as one. And if you have bungee cords or zip ties, I'll show you what I mean. You should probably take that and zip tie it up to the coil spring up top, so that way it's just not hanging by the brake line. The bolts are exactly the same size and length, so you don't have to worry about mixing them up. So now, as you can see, this is loose. I'm going to go ahead and pull it off and just hang it up here on the, hang it up by the coil spring up top. So that way it's just not hanging and will damage the calipers. So I'll see if I can tie it up a little bit better. Okay, so you can see here, I just have it hanging here, that way it's not hanging by the cable. Obviously I'll need to maneuver it as I loosen up the other bolts, but it is hanging, and that's pretty much all you need to do. You can use a zip tie, you can use a bungee cord, it doesn't much matter. So the next thing we'll want to tackle is you can go on ahead and turn the steering wheel back straight again, and then we can go on ahead and focus on taking off the remainder bolts. We do need to remove these strut bolts here. We need to remove the tie rod bolt that's on the other side where this here tie rod goes into. There's an 18 millimeter there. These are I believe an 18 and a 21 millimeter on the other side. And then we need to remove the ABS wheel speed sensor that goes down right here in the middle. That one could vary. They're usually 8 millimeters. However, sometimes depending on the year, it might be a 10 millimeter. So yeah, I'll go on ahead and remove this wheel speed sensor now. Pretty much if you look straight down into this hole, there's a bolt that's holding on this wire. Once you loosen it up, you can go on ahead and pull this wire out of, just pull this rubber out of this bracket right here, and then remove the wheel speed sensor. I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. Okay, that one was a 10. And just push this here out of this bracket. You do need to be kind of careful. Just like so. And then this wire should just pull straight up like this. You can just let this hang down to the side, that's fine. Or somewhere out of your way. Or even up here, anywhere you want to put it at, it doesn't really matter. And the next thing we want to tackle is the tie rod in, which is right here, this bolt right here. It's an 18 millimeter. You need a deep socket for it. If you don't have a deep socket, you could get a box-in wrench, is like what I'm going to use around it. And I might not have the leverage I need, but I should be able to get it off. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and remove that now. Okay, so classic case here. If in the case of this one, the ball joint is actually spinning, the stud is actually spinning with this nut, which I don't need. I need the nut, then I need the stud to stay in place while I loosen this up. There is two flat portions on this where you can hold it with a, with a wrench, adjustable wrench, or you can hold this while you loosen up this bolt. So I'm gonna go grab that and spray this with WD-40. Okay, so as you can see, I have an adjustable wrench over here on this side. It's just butted up against the sway bar link to stop it from spinning around. And I can now freely loosen up this bolt, and the stud won't be spinning around in there. So just go ahead and remove this completely, just like so. And you can just take the tie rod in. Go ahead and put the bolt back on here, that way you don't lose it. Or excuse me, the nut back on, that way you don't lose where it goes. And then now we can go on ahead and focus on removing the two bolts that hold on the strut to the actual top of the knuckle here. One side is an 18 millimeter and the other side is a 21 millimeter. So you'll need to have, a combination of something, a wrench on one side and a socket on the other side, or you probably need some type of large breaker bar to, I would try to, you know, put the breaker bar on the 21mm side over here. So one side will hold it and the other one will loosen it. So just go on ahead and loosen and remove both. One might be a little bit stubborn. You might need to use a little mallet or hammer to tap out the screw, but they're pretty easy to come out. Okay, so after you got that off, if you look, pay attention towards the front of the center of the hub here. On this car, for some reason, it is not here. I don't know why, but it needs to be here. There should be a bolt that's holding the CV axle into the knuckle here. It's either going to be a 13mm or a 14mm, depending on the year of your car. But pretty much you take it, long breaker bar, and break it loose. If for some reason you can't break it loose and the wheels are spinning or the axle is spinning, alternatively, if it's spinning, take the lug studs, take two of them and thread them back into place. People are gonna hate me for this, but I'm telling you, it's not gonna damage anything. Spin them all the way in so that you're not touching any of the threads. And what you can do is you can take a flathead screwdriver and hold the rotor in place while you loosen up the center. So this will stop the rotor from spinning around. That's obviously a lot faster than lowering one side of the car. So however you want to do it, however you can get it off, that'll be the way you need to. But as I said, this one doesn't have one, so I'm gonna have to go buy one because someone didn't put it back in there. Okay, got both those out. Both the 21mm nuts are off. So now here's where you want to be careful, because once you pull the bolts out of here, like so, this whole knuckle is going to want to fall down. At the same time, you're going ahead and pull the axle out, as I just did. I just pulled it, just reach around and pull it straight out. Be careful, there will be a dust shield. I'll show you. There will be a dust shield like this that comes out. Do remember which way it went on, because you need to put that back on when you go to reinstall it. So yeah, just set that down on the side. As you can see here, there's only one more bolt, this bolt right here holding on to the strut. So I'm going to leave that in there for now, and what I'm going to do is turn your attention to the bottom of the knuckle here, and this will be the last thing we need to do. But as you can see, I went on ahead and pulled the axle out. I left the last bolt in right here. Before you take that one out, come down here and you'll see the bottom, the last ball joint that you need to loosen up down there. That you need to loosen that one up, so that way you can free the entire knuckle. So first you're going to loosen that up, take the bolt out, or excuse me, take the nut off. I believe that is a size, it could be a 21. Some cars it might actually be an 18mm. For this car in particular is an 18mm. So you'll need to loosen that there bolt up, this one right here on the bottom, remove the nut, then you can go on ahead and come back up top and take that last strut bolt out. You know, you will have to support the weight of this here knuckle. You're going to remove this whole entire piece from the car, and then I'll give you access to the lower control arm that you can see back here in the back. So yeah, bottom ball joint first, then remove this, then, you know, maneuver this thing out of here. So we'll get to it right now. Okay, so in the case of this bolt that's spinning on the bottom ball joint here is spinning around, just like we did here on the tie rod end. Remember, you used a adjustable wrench to hold the top because the stud was spinning. The same thing's happening to the bottom ball joint. So like I did before, grab yourself some WD-40, go ahead and spray that area. Then now, instead of using a adjustable wrench, the center, if you look under the ball joint, on the bottom ball joint, the center of it has like a Torx, can accept a Torx bit. So I'm gonna go find the right Torx bit that will hold the stud in place while I use the 18 millimeter here box end to loosen it. So let me go get the right one. These are Torx bits. What they look like pretty much are star bits. People want to call them star bits. So let me go ahead and get the correct size, figure out what the size is. Okay, it is a T40 Torx. So if you grab a T40 Torx and a box end wrench, put the wrench on first, and then you'll use the Torx on the bottom to hold it while you spin the nut off. Do be careful because a washer will come off with the nut as well. And there it goes right there. Looks kind of like a cone shape with the T40 Torx in the middle there. Well, not in the middle, it would be in the middle where you're holding it at. So now, last thing you want to do is remove the bolt here from the shock. You might need to persuade it out a little bit. Now you see that that's the last bolt that's loose. And then you go ahead and just lift this whole entire thing out right off the ball joint in the bottom. I'm going to screw the lower ball joint nut back on so that way I know where it goes and I don't lose it. And then you can just set this whole thing down to the side for now, and we'll focus on getting this here lower control arm out. Okay, so now you can see we got the knuckle off, we got the axle just hanging there, and now we can go ahead and have all the room we need to get this lower control arm off here. As you can see, it's held on in the back, straight back. It's held on right here by a bolt and right here by the bolt, but you can see they're coming in backwards. If you lay down underneath the car on the opposite side of this frame rail, you'll be able to look right at those bolts, loosen them up, and remove the control arm from that side. And then as we come over to this side, there is a bolt on the bottom that goes straight up from the bottom, and it's held on by a nut up here on the top. I believe that that nut is a 21 millimeter. I will double check here in a minute. And if I'm not mistaken, the other ones should be, I think, 8. Okay, so in order to access and I apologize for the lighting, I'm sorry. In order to access the back of those screws on the lower control arm, we need to remove this giant plastic shield that's right underneath the engine. If you just look at it, go around the perimeter of it, it's held on by various 12 millimeter bolts. I believe there are, looks like 3 in the front, and I believe another 3 in the back. That should be the only things that are holding it on. So just go on our head around, loosen up the bolts, and remove the plastic shield, so that way we can have access to the lower control arm bolts. They are 12 millimeter, by the way. Okay, so once you got the plastic shield removed, if you look just on the opposite side of where the lower control arm is, there's 2 bolts here. I believe they are both 17 millimeter. Yes, 17 millimeter bolts. So you can go ahead and loosen and remove both of these, so that way you can take this lower control arm off, well, at least on one side. Then the other one will be the other bolt that's on the other side. I'll go ahead and show you that in a minute here. Let me take these both off. Okay, that's one bolt out. And go ahead and loosen up the other one. Don't know why they need to make these bolts so long, but they are. And as you can see, this one doesn't want to come out, but that is completely okay. It can stay right there. The control arm is still loose on the other side, so we're good to go. So one of them will come out, the other one won't. It's completely fine. Now we'll focus our attention on the last bolt that's holding on the lower control arm on the other side. Okay, now as we look at the very last bolt that's holding on the lower control arm, you just unloosen both those over here. And now, as I was saying, it doesn't matter if the other bolt didn't come out. Obviously you can see this lower control arm is free. The last one is on the other side over here. There's a nut on top holding on. That's a 21mm, and then the bolt coming through the bottom is an 18, that one right there. So go ahead and just loosen this and pull the bolt straight out, and then the control arm will be free. You might have to wrestle it out of there a little bit or use a flat head on top there to pry it out, but it'll come out. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. Okay, so I got that bolt out. Now you should be able to completely remove the control arm from the car, just pulling it out of position, and it should come right out. Might have to persuade it a little bit. There it is, completely out. So as you can see, we got the old one out here. You can see the bushings on this guy over here are torn, so that one is definitely a no-go. And then this over here is supposed to be holding this in place. So that guy is definitely not good either. It's cracked in there and cracked on the other side, so you can see the crack there on the top. So yeah, pretty much going ahead and reinstall it back into place, the exact same as removing it. It will take a little persuasion to get this side to go in to cooperate. You may take some grease and put some grease on top and help you slide it in, slide it into that hole there. But yeah, we'll go ahead and get a new one and get it into place. Then you can go ahead and tighten up the bolt that you took out there and tighten up the other two bolts on the other side of the frame rail. Just get them as snug as you can. I don't know the exact torque specs. I'm just going to take a breaker bar and tighten them down. You can look them up if you'd like. I don't know what they are, so I just get them as tight as I can. That way I know they won't come off. Alright, I'll get right back with you guys. Okay, after you got the lower control arm off, this here steering stop needs to get transferred over to your new lower control arm if it did not already come with one. It's held on by two 12mm bolts. As you can notice, there one side has this metal tang thing on it. Just make sure you orient them the same way when you put them on. So don't forget to transfer that over, otherwise you could do damage to your steering rack by overextending it too far. So yeah. So as you can see, unlike the other one, this thing actually fell out. This is actually supposed to be press fit in here and not move. So yeah, this one's definitely broken. So like I said, you might have some issues trying to fit this guy back in here. It needs to go up under here, and just try your best to fit it into position. This one actually went in surprisingly easy. Then you'll just go on ahead and grab the bolt. I would first do this one, that at least start it. You want to make sure you can start all of them by hand. Wow, it is really windy. Sorry guys. You want to at least make sure that you can get all of them into position first. Like so. Don't tighten them all the way up yet. Okay, so that one's in the position, and you want to go in underneath the frame rail and make sure you can start those other ones by hand, and make sure that everything starts straight so that way you're not stripping anything. So I'm going to go ahead underneath the car right now, and I'm going to go ahead and tighten the ones underneath the frame rail on the left side. I'm going to tighten those up completely, and then I'll come and tighten the other one up over here. So if you'll remember, the ones under the car are 17mm, so I'm going ahead and get those now. Okay, so I got the other side tightened up, the two 17mm underneath the frame. Now I'm going to go on ahead and tighten up the main one that comes through here, and that'll be good to go. Okay, so you got the two 17mm tightened up over here. You have that main bolt tightened up over there. Pretty much now you just reassemble everything you took apart. We'll go ahead and grab the whole knuckle assembly there. Set this ball joint down into there, and then we'll put the one bolt in there to hold that into place. So go ahead and stick this guy back in here like so. Just hand tighten the bolt on the bottom just to hold it into place. Remember, the cone side goes facing up. You want to make sure that you get your dust shield that goes on the front of the axle right here. Kind of feed the axle into the position it's going to go, and then you'll have to also at the same time try and line up these shock bolts here. You will have to push down. You'll have to push down on the lower control arm in order to get these to line up correctly, so that way you can match the shock. So that'll be a little bit of a battle, but as you can see, I'm fighting with it here now, pushing it down enough to get the bolt holes to line up. So there, I got one bolt hole lined up. That's really all you need. In order to line the other one up, you just push this one forward into it. But right now you want to make sure that you can get the axle into place correct into the splines where it needs to go. So just make sure that that's all lined up, and you make sure that your dust shield is in the correct location. Then you can go on ahead and just push this knuckle up and get the other bolt and stick the bolt into here to hold it up. Like so. And make sure the axle is completely pushed in all the way to where it needs to be sitting at. Don't forget to put the 13 or 14mm nut back here into the axle hole, and tighten that up as tight as you can get it. And then pretty much everything is a reverse of removal. We'll go on ahead and tighten up these two bolts here. Two 18mm on one side, 21mm on the other side. Like so. Now you want to come around to the other side. If you remember, we took the tie rod in off over here. You can go on ahead and reattach the tie rod, and it is an 18mm bolt. Just kind of feed that up into place. And if you need to use the adjustable wrench to hold the stud, do make sure you do that when you tighten it up. Same goes for the bottom bolt down here. You'll need to use the Torx in order to hold the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead, use a Torx and an 18mm now to tighten the bottom up. Okay, so I got the lower ball joint tightened. You tighten up your axle nut, your axle bolt here, which is 13 or 14mm. Tighten up the strut bolts, 18 on one side, 21 on the other side. Tighten up your tie rod over here, which is 18mm. You go on ahead and reinstall the ABS speed sensor, which slides right down in the middle, is held on by a 10mm bolt. Don't forget to put the little rubber grommet back into the bracket. Okay, got that back into place. So now everything here is tight and good and ready to go. Last thing we'll need to do is to put the brake caliper back on. If you're looking at your brake caliper, you'll notice that one of the pads may have came out of position. It simply just slides back up into place. Might take a little bit of maneuvering to get it back up in there, but if it did slide out, it'll just go right back up into position. Now what I'm going to do actually is go back into the car. If you remember, we did in the beginning, turn the wheel all the way to the left so I can have good access to those 15mm bolts. Okay, now I have the wheel turned to the side. I'm going to go ahead and take these bungee cords off from holding this brake caliper on. And as I said, if you see one of the brake calipers or brake pads has come out of position, it'll just slide back up into place. Now you'll just take the whole entire thing, slide it right back up onto the rotor. Just put it, it should just be able to slide right back into position. And you'll take this here bracket and line up the 15mm bolts that are in the back, and then you'll be good to go. Once you line up one, the other one should be easy to put on, or easier. Don't forget that the steering stop goes face down and towards the inside of the car. So now we'll just go on ahead and tighten up these two 15mm bolts that are holding on the caliper bracket, and then that'll be it. I mean, obviously you'll do the same for the other side, but it's pretty much it. I don't think I need to show you the other side for you to get the idea. So if you have any comments or questions, please ask them in the comment section below. I do appreciate you guys stopping by and watching the video. I apologize for the lighting sometimes and the wind, as always. I don't know why it's always so windy here. But yeah, please hit the like button, share it with your friends, and smash that subscribe button on the way out. It really helps me out. Alright guys, I'll see you next time.